This is Join Us in France, episode 516. 516. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we take a conversational journey through the beauty, culture, and flavors of France. Today I chat with Paul Gulesserian about uncovering the hidden gems of the Loire Valley. We explore lesser-known chateaus, recount fascinating historical tales, and share insider tips on must-visit spots and delicious local cuisine as well. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or planning your first trip to France, this episode is packed with insights and inspiration you don't want to miss. This podcast is supported by donors and listeners who buy my tours and services, including my itinerary consult service, my GPS self-guided tours of Paris on the Voice Map app, or take a day trip with me around the southwest of France in my electric car. You can browse all of that at my boutique, joinusinfrance.com/boutique. And remember, Patreon supporters get the podcast ad-free as soon as it's ready. Click on the link in the show notes to enjoy this Patreon reward for as little as $2 per month. For the magazine part of the podcast, after my chat with Paul today, I'll discuss phone safety while on the go. Maybe you know all of this, but there are simple steps you can take to make yourself less vulnerable. And good news, the reservation system for Bootcamp 2025 is now open to all. You can join me and Elise in France in real life for Bootcamp 2025. This is a 10-day immersive tour starting the morning of May 10th, 2025, of course, and ending late on May 18th, in Toulouse. You'll have the possibility of taking French classes every weekday morning, and the rest of the time we'll visit some of the best attractions of the Southwest, including Albi, Carcassonne, the Painted Cave of Pêche-Merle, and the Castle of Foix, and several more. You can hear previous bootcampers talk about their experiences on episodes 445 and 498 of the podcast. If you'd like to read more about the specifics or secure your spot, head over to joinusinfrance.com/bootcamp 2025. No spaces or dashes. Let's make 2025 a year of unforgettable French memories. Bonjour, Paul Gulesserian, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie. I'm super happy to be with you today.
Lovely to talk to you. So you're actually living in France. I'm getting French people, yay!
That's right. That's right. Though I am an American, but yes, I am living in France for the past 6 years now. Can't believe it.
Wonderful. And your husband is French.
So my husband is French originally. So I was actually living in France 15 years ago. My work transferred me to France. I met him. We spent some time in France. Then I got transferred to London. We lived in London, then moved to New York, lived in New York for 6 years. And then we both came back to France 6 years ago.
Wonderful. So you've probably had plenty of trips through France, but today we're going to talk about one that you took around the Loire Valley. And especially since you have your time, you go to some that people don't get to, right?
Yeah, I am a Francophile. I'm proud to admit it. I am an ultimate Francophile. And since being in France, I have fallen in love with this country. And everywhere we go, we find something more and more beautiful. And me and Florian, my husband, we love exploring and finding new sites, natural wonders, trying the cuisine. I love France so much. I actually became a French citizen 3 years ago.
Bravo, bravo, merci.
Merci. And it's funny with Florian. He's actually seen more of France with me than he had, his entire life living in France. So I've helped him become more French.
That's very good. Yeah, nothing like leaving France and then you come back and you go, I actually don't know the country that well.
And it's funny, I think I know France now better than the United States because in France we have lots of vacation time. It's kind of exotic to see. So lots of exploring.
Where are you based out of? Where do you live?
So we spend our time, half the time in Paris, and then we have a house just outside of Paris in this town called Chantilly in English, about 45 minutes north of Paris. So we're spending our weekends and our downtime there in Chantilly. And actually, Annie, we actually listened to a podcast, I think, on the Chateau of Chantilly that you had a couple of seasons ago. So yeah, we're in Chantilly, just outside of Paris. And actually, yesterday in Chantilly, the Olympic flame came through the town. So we were work from home and we saw this flame pass in front of the chateau in the town, which was quite moving, I have to say.
Beautiful. Yes, beautiful stuff.
But speaking of chateaus, I am a chateau addict. I actually think we've lost count of the number of chateaus that we've seen in France. And so we've actually been to the Loire Valley region once before in 2020. And during that trip, we saw all of the big name chateaus that I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about. It's like Chambord, Chenonceau, Cheverny, all the big ones.
Amboise.
Blois. I forget the name, the one where Da Vinci.
That's Clos-Lucé.
The Clos-Lucé
Yes,
also.
in Amboise as well, in the town of Amboise, yes.
So we did all of these chateaus, but we took this trip to visit some of the other chateaus, some of the lesser known ones, and spend some time exploring the rest of that beautiful part of France.
Fantastic. I want to hear all about it because people often ask, is it even worth going to the other ones? And of course it is, but I would like you to tell us about that.
Sure. So we did this trip in May, kind of the beginning of May, and
2024.
2024, yes. And May is a very particular month in France because there's like 5 bank holidays in the month of May. So depending when they fall, you get these super long weekends or a random day in the middle of the week. And so that particular week, there was 2 bank holidays in the week. There was the May 8th, which is like the Victory in Europe Day. And the May 9th is the Ascension Day. I'm not sure what it actually is celebrating, but it's a day off. And so that was the Wednesday and Thursday. And in our job, they gave us what they call in France le pont. They gave us the extra Friday off. So we had 3 days off in a row. So we only had to take off 2 days and we had a full week of days off, which was nice.
French people love this. What sort of work do you do that you can do this sort of thing?
Yeah, so me and my husband actually both work for a French beauty company. I do HR, I do training. So I actually spend a lot of my time in conversations like on this, like on Teams, educating and upskilling people. And my husband works in purchasing. It's a French-based company, that's very, very generous with the days.
Right. So you get French holidays and French.
Yep. We get the French holidays, which is very nice.
And you also get your 5 weeks off, I assume, in the summer or whenever you want to take them.
So we're recording this in kind of middle of July, and in 1 week I have 1 month off. So I can't complain.
Fantastic. Enjoy. All right. Let's talk about your trip last May through the Loire Valley. Where did you go?
Yeah, so we kind of focused on the western part of the Loire Valley. And during that trip, we visited 2 different departments and 2 different regions of France. So the first part of the trip, we spent 4 days in between Saumur and Chinon, and then 2 days around Angers. So we're in between the Indre and Loire department and the Maine and Loire department.
Right. It's because, of course, it's a river, so it's long.
Yes.
I mean, this is obvious, but when I do itinerary with people, they say, what's a central place in the Loire Valley? And I'm like, well, if it was a circular river, it'd be an easy question. But since it's not a circular river.
I think it's the longest river in France.
Might be.
It's
possible. Right. So you started from Saumur and Chinon.
Yep, that's exactly right. We actually drove from our house in Chantilly to Saumur. It was the first stop. It was about maybe a 4-hour drive. We left super early on a Saturday morning, so there was literally no traffic, direct shot. And, the highway system in France is extremely well maintained. I think it's actually much more maintained than you find in the US. And it's maintained by private companies, actually. So the downside is there's a lot of tolls. So I think we paid like 35 euros in tolls to get there, but the ride was super smooth. The rest stops are very well maintained and clean. So it's kind of worth the price.
Yep.
I wanted to give your listeners, Annie, a bit of warning, though, about driving in France. I've heard this a couple times already on your podcast. There's a lot of automatic sensors for speeding. And if you get flashed by one of these sensors, you'll get in the mail a fine later on.
Yep. And that happened to me last week, as a matter of fact.
Yeah? Oh.
I was driving to my sister's house, and she lives in the neighborhood where I grew up. we both grew up in that neighborhood. It's the same house where we grew up. And I was not aware that they had put a speed thing at the bottom of the hill. And I was 6 over the speed limit, which cost me 90 euros.
Oh,
Oh, well, now I know. And that one, because it was in the city, there's not even a flash. No flash.
so you don't even know.
I didn't know until I got
It showed up in the mail.
But it was me. It was me.
What was interesting here, so it was a very rainy period. When we were driving, it was raining, then stopping, raining and stopping. And in France, the normal speed limit on the autoroute is what? 130 kilometers per hour, which I think is like 80 miles per hour. But when it's raining, it goes to 110.
Yes.
And so on the way there, we thought we were flashed because we were going above 110 because it actually wasn't raining anymore, but it was still a little wet. So fingers crossed, we haven't received anything yet. And it was about 2 months. So hopefully we're in the clear.
Oh, yeah. 2 months, you're fine.
Okay,
Yeah. You get those. I mean, if you live outside of France, it can take longer. But within France, I got mine within a week.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
So no fine for us. Yes.
You're good.
Good.
But yes, you do have to be very careful about your speed.
And I notice now since the Olympics, I see a lot more of the sensing machines. Like we were driving back to Paris yesterday and there's quite a few more new ones around.
Yeah.
So it's something to watch out for.
Watch out. Yes. Watch out. All right. So Saumur, you started with Saumur. Where were you staying? Did you move hotels every night? Well, how did you do this?
Yeah. So we stayed 4 nights kind of in between Saumur and Chinon. And we actually stayed at this beautiful domain. It was kind of like a renovated farm complex. So there was many buildings. And I'll tell you the name in 1 second. I'm just looking for my notes here. It was called the Hotel Le Domaine de Mestré in a town called Fontevraud-l'Abbé. So it's kind of in between Saumur and Chinon. And like I said, it was kind of like an old farm complex with different buildings, all renovated and kind of a French country decor. Honestly, I was really impressed with this property. There was like a nice shared family room. There was a dining room restaurant on premises that we had dinner one night. And the rooms all renovated, super comfy bed, nice decor, no TV. But you know what? We didn't miss it. They had a pool with like an indoor pool with a sauna and a hot tub. So it was really, honestly, one of the best hotels I've stayed at. So I'll share with you the link. And
and I'll put that in the show notes. When people enjoy a hotel, I put it in the show notes because why not? That's great.
Yeah. So we stayed there. And so the first day we went to Saumur and it was raining horribly, but that didn't stop us. So cute town, about 27,000 people, known for great wine, and it's a horse town. So there was like a cavalry station there. They had the farmer's market on the Saturday, very traditional French country market with the butcher, the cheese, the veggies. And when we were there, it was all about the strawberries and the white asparagus, which was everywhere. So beautiful to see. We went to the chateau that was there. So the Château de Saumur, not as big, but it was situated on a hill and it had a beautiful, beautiful view of the Loire River just below. Inside, there's like a porcelain collection, some horse collection, some memorabilia. So we just kind of walked around and checked it out.
So, I wonder if the Château de Saumur is not a national chateau because that makes a difference. Some of them are national, which means that they are. So they call it Château de Saumur, Musée des Arts Décoratifs et du Cheval. So they have an emphasis on decorative arts and horsey things.
It was really well maintained. Looks like it was renovated, cared for. They had a nice welcome center. So honestly, this one was pretty nice.
But it's not as big as the other ones. It's not as famous as the other ones.
No. Honestly, we toured the thing in 20 minutes. The view outside, because you're perched up high, down in the river below, was really spectacular.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So you recommend this one for people who want what? They are looking for...
If you have a passion for horses, there's a lot of horse memorabilia there. The town itself is cute, and especially on a weekend to see the farmer's market. It was raining, so we couldn't profit, but you can go to the farmer's market, grab a sandwich or a pastry, and sit up on the hill near the chateau, and you get a great view of the Loire River below.
Yeah, you don't need to do anything spectacular to have a good time in France. That's one of the reasons why it's so pleasant to live here is because you can just go somewhere and just take it easy and look around and have a meal and a drink and enjoy it.
It's this joie de vivre.
Yes, yes, yes. Although we're not quite as joyous when it's raining too much. But
Yeah, but you know what? I had my yellow raincoat and we powered through.
wonderful, wonderful. Okay,
So
what
then-
came next?
We did about a 15-minute drive, and that's what's actually interesting with the Loire Valley. Every 20 minutes, hit a chateau.
Yeah, yeah.
So we drove 20 minutes to this other one called the Château de Brézé.
Which I have not seen.
This one, honestly, it's a hidden gem, and they advertise it as un château sous un château, a chateau under a chateau. So basically you go, and it's a beautiful chateau. The chateau itself, nothing amazing, kind of standard, but underground, it was built on this massive network of underground tunnels that were carved into like the limestone over the last 1,000 years. So it was this big underground fortress that you could actually, there was rooms where you saw they used to make bread in this underground chateau. They were making wine in this fortress. That horses were living all underground. So it was completely something you would not expect until you actually go down below. Really, really different.
That's very different. Do you remember why they did that?
It was like originally it was a defensive fortress in the Middle Ages, carved out for the stone that they were excavating for other things. So it was just a defensive station.
Yeah.
And they just kept adding to it over the years.
An underground shelter.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So I suppose that one didn't have quite so many visitors.
Well, not as many. And if mobility is a challenge, it's not good for that. It's quite steep going down, and going in the underground part is a little bit difficult.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That would be a problem for some people, but most people can probably handle. I mean, for most people, it would be okay, I suppose.
Then the next one, again, another 15-minute drive, we hit a chateau. This one was called, honestly, it's crazy. You throw a stone and you hit one. This one was called the Chateau de Montreuil-Bellay. This one was tiny. But it was perched up on a hill, this time above the Le Touet River. So a smaller tributary, I guess, of the Loire River. Had this beautiful, beautiful, very manicured garden. So, we were just kind of walking around the garden, checking out this house. And, funny story here, a bit of a memorable experience. We're walking around outside in the garden. All of a sudden, we felt like something hit us. And actually, a bird had pooped on Florian's head and jacket.
Oh.
But when it happened, I remembered, I actually think that's good luck.
Perhaps it is. Let's say it is.
Yeah. So if some reason I had that in my head, it's good luck. So right after we left the chateau, we went across the street to the magazine shop. We bought the lottery ticket, hoping we would win. But unfortunately, we had to go back to work on Monday, so we didn't win.
Alas.
So it wasn't that lucky.
Alas.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yes. That's great. So what was special about that one?
Well, the garden was quite special. And again, a lot of these chateaux are perched up on a hill. So you have these just views.
Yeah.
The views of the river, and you can see quite far. And, even though it was overcast with the clouds, it's just beautiful scenery. And honestly, I think I was just standing there for 10 minutes, just like looking around. I'm like, this is just beautiful. You see the slate roofs of the little village. You see the bridges on the river. You see some forest. It's just like, wow, this is just a really magical place. It's breathtaking.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was big. I mean, of course, safety was the name of the game back then. But, a lot of these chateaux in the Loire were not built that long ago that they were worried about invasions by the Vikings or whatever. That was over by then. But they still enjoyed a beautiful high up, because it's both I can see down below, but also you can see me and how cool I am that I have this big chateau on the hill.
I'm the boss up here.
That's right. The boss has I guess it's the ultimate penthouse.
It's the ultimate penthouse. I think that's right, Annie.
So that one took how long for the visit?
20 minutes, 25 minutes. We spent most time in the garden, and then we walk around the chateau. And this one was interesting. It almost looked like inside people were actually still living there, because there's like some of the furniture was modern in the salon and there's family pictures. So maybe they lived there into the 50s or 60s, so you could see that a family still had somewhat of a presence there.
And I assume you had to pay a little bit to get into all of these chateaus, right? They're not free.
They're not cheap either. Sometimes I think the price is like between €8 and €14 per person. Yep. So, We visited 13 chateaux, so
It adds up.
It adds up. But actually, one pro tip, Annie, that we came across the way, like it's interesting if you visit a chateau to ask them, are they in a network with some of the other chateaus? Because we went to actually this one chateau and they said, oh, hey, we're in collaboration with this other chateau. So if you go there and show the receipt to this one, you get like a €2 like reduction and it goes both ways.
Yes.
So it's helpful to ask that, like if you're visiting a cultural place.
And they might have a combo pass, something with like more than one that you can get. That's worth asking at the chateau. And this is the sort of thing that you just need to ask when you get there because it probably changes all the time.
So that was the first day.
So there's 3 chateaus in one day. That's you like chateaus.
We like to be pretty active on our vacations and we spend a lot of time planning. And I actually find planning for trips like a relaxing moment, studying a bit and making a spreadsheet of where we're going to go. But the way we like to do it is we get up early and we bang out a lot of the cultural sites. And then we're back at the hotel at like maybe 2 p.m., 3 p.m., read a book. Here is the pool. So we go in the pool and hang out and you have the afternoon off before you go to dinner. So we find for us, it's like a nice balance, an active morning, relaxing afternoon.
That's great. That's fantastic. So that was day 1.
That was day 1. So day 2, it was still raining, but we brought our bikes with us and we were determined, okay, we want to go biking. And so we have these bikes that fold up, that they're easy to put in the car so we can take them pretty easily, unfold it and go. So this day we're like, okay, let's put on our rain gear and we're going to go for a bike ride. So we did it. We biked about maybe 20, 30 minutes and we stopped in this town called Turquant, Turquant. And I'm not sure what to call it in English, but it's a troglodyte village.
Yes.
So it's a village that's actually built into like a side of a cliff, like houses and stores are built into caves in the side of the mountain and they're living in there.
That's great. Yeah, those are fun.
So you have this whole street of these little cave stores and it was filled with art galleries. So each little house was an art gallery and you could go in and tour. And one of them was kind of a funny story. So it was this beautiful art gallery with different types of media and stuff. Even though we're living in France and Florian's French, him and I, we talk in English. So we're in the store talking in English and the owner hears us and he comes over and he starts engaging us in English. And it was a little bit difficult for him, but he kept engaging us in English, which is very nice. And then at some point he said, oh, we even ship to the UK. So I guess he thought we were British. And we're like, oh no, we actually live in France. And he's like, wait a second, you're French and you're making me speak English? Like, what's going on? And so he burst laughing for like 10 minutes. He thought it was like the funniest thing ever. But it made me come to realize like the French people are very welcoming and they make an effort to welcome people from different cultures.
Yeah.
And if you make the effort back with the bonjour and the s'il vous plaît, honestly, it's very appreciated. You can find some really special moments with new people.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And again, these little towns, you read about them, but there's not that many in the Loire Valley that are left. There were more before. And there's also mushroom caves. Did you run into any mushroom caves?
We didn't see any, but I remember when we were in summer, there was a lot of mushrooms at the market. And we saw a sign, there was like a museum mushroom site or something that you could see.
Yeah, if you like to see where mushrooms grow,
exactly.
You can do that in the Loire Valley as well.
What was also in that town in one of the caves was like a winery called the Domaine des Amandiers, so the almond domain. And we actually did a tasting. And this gentleman had a really beautiful a rosé crémant. So like a rosé sparkling wine.
Yeah.
And it was super, super sweet, which we love. So it's like really nice for an aperitif in the summer. So we bought 2 bottles. Not super expensive, like €8.70 that we'll save for the vacation in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. And you managed to take all of that on your bike?
On the bike.
So were you drenched by then or not quite yet?
Well, it was like drizzling on and off.
Okay.
So it was okay.
It was okay. Okay.
It was okay.
All right.
So then we biked 30 minutes to a town called Montsoreau. It's one of the plus beaux villages de France, one of the most beautiful villages in France.
Yeah.
And we saw a sign there. Apparently the Olympic torch went through that town as well. There was a small chateau that we went into and it was completely, everything original was gone inside and they turned it into a modern art gallery with modern installations and videos. Like some of the stuff was a bit weird for me, it was a bit too modern, But what was interesting about the chateau, you could go on the roof at the very, very top. And so again, you had an amazing view.
The view.
The Loire River, and it's just stunning. Even raining, it is stunning.
Yeah. Yeah. Even raining, it's stunning. Yeah, that's true.
And so then the best sight of the day was the last one. So we biked another 20 minutes. And here we started to get wet, but we powered through. And we went to this site called l'Abbaye Royale Fontevraud.
Yes.
This was one of the most beautiful sites I have seen in France. And you really can't see it until you get past the entrance complex and you walk through the entrance lobby.
This one is not on a hill.
No, it's not on a hill. It's actually kind of down a bit. And it's this complex of these religious buildings, this beautiful abbey. And it has quite an interesting history because it was this abbey. And apparently, I was reading that the Eleanor of Aquitaine and her son, the Richard Lionhearted, are buried there.
Yeah.
So some very famous figures in France were there. So you had this abbey that was turned into a prison, and then it was turned into a museum. And in the museum, it's different types of modern art, it's multimedia stuff.
Yes.
It's so many things to see. I think we spent 2 hours there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that visit as well. Yeah, it's a beautiful place and it's a lovely village too. I mean, it's very small, but it's very pleasant.
Yeah, very pleasant. Honestly, unexpected. It's like, oh, we're going to an abbey. Okay, another church. No, it was really something spectacular. So for me, you can't miss that one.
Yeah. And so from there, you bike back to where you were staying?
Yeah. And it was in that town. So we were 5 minutes from the hotel, and we went right to the pool.
You were wet already. Get a little wet more. Yeah. That's great. Did you enjoy the hotel there, or was it just okay?
That hotel? Well, I was still at the hotel that I mentioned
it's the same.
before. Yeah,
okay,
same one.
Same one.
Yeah.
Same one. Okay. Very good.
So the next day, we drove to Chinon, so a 20-minute drive. We parked near the royal fortress of Chinon. And I think this one is probably more well-known than some of the other ones we had visited. I think this one does have a name.
Well, Fontevraud is also famous.
Yeah.
For people who love history, they know Fontevraud.
Yeah, it does have a rich history.
But Chinon is also one of the more popular ones, I guess.
Yeah. And honestly, again, the view. It's this ancient fortress. It's mostly destroyed. So it's mostly ruins of towers and, chateau pieces. You can go in some, but some are still ruined. So it's a mix, Some things you can view, some things you can't. But you're perched up on the hill above the Vienne River, so another river in the Loire ecosystem. And again, the view, the village, all the slate roofs. And honestly, it's out of like a storybook of this view of Chinon. So you had the view, we explored some of the sites, we profited from the histopad that they had, which I know you've spoken about before, where it's the iPad where you hold it up and it kind of shows you what things looked like when the chateau wasn't destroyed. So we were able to see what it was like in its heyday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are very fun. If you can do a visit with a histopad, I think that's a very good way to go.
Yeah, and it was included in the price.
Yeah.
Some places will charge you, I guess, for the audio guide. Here was included. So it was nice to be able to profit from that as well. And we arrived just in time because right behind us was a group of school kids, like 50 kids. So it's like we were able to sneak through and tour it and then not have to wait behind all the cute kids.
Yeah, that would be loud. Oh, 50 kids, that would be loud.
So then we had brought our bikes with us in the car from Chinon. And so we did it. We tried to do another bike ride that day. And I wanted to give some advice on bike trips. And I think you might have mentioned this in a podcast before, and I fell victim to it. So I should have listened more carefully. I used the Google Maps to build the itinerary for the bike ride. And, it looks pretty nice. And so 9 out of 10 times, it's pretty good. But sometimes it's taking you through a route that's really not a route. So you're going in a field of crops in between the corn and the wheat. You're going through what's really thick bush, and you end up having to push your bike.
Yep,
and when it's muddy and raining, it's not the nicest experience. So check it before you go.
Yeah, the Google Map, the bike route, it's better than not having it. But if when you get there, it doesn't look right, back off and go some other way.
Yeah. And sometimes we're like, oh, it's probably just 5 minutes. And then it's like half an hour you're pushing.
Yeah. No, I've had this experience as well, right around my area. But of course, it's my area. So I knew where else I could go. Like, I'll just take the road where the car is, where I do this on the car instead of this dumb, especially if it's uphill, there's holes and gravel and
Yep.
no,
Yep.
not for me.
But
All
anyway,
right.
we found our way and we found this other chateau called the Chateau du Revo, Rivau. This one was stunning. It was a beautiful chateau, super well renovated and maintained with a mix of antique pieces with modern art pieces. Each room was really quite visually stunning to look at. But the most exciting part was the gardens. The gardens was one of the most beautiful gardens I've seen, and it was quite diverse. You had a traditional vegetable garden. There was like, how they do the maze sometimes with shrubs. There were beehives. They had phoenix birds like in a cage. They had trees where they harvest the truffles from the roots there. There were peacocks. There were rabbits. Exploring the garden was really, really, really magical.
And it wasn't raining at that point?
No, we were in between the rain.
Oh,
So
that's the best kind. That's the best kind. Because then the flowers are going to be happy. They're happy and wet, but it's not raining on you. So that's perfect. Exactly. That's great because I don't think I've been to, no, I'm sure I haven't been to Revo.
Yeah, no, it was a really beautiful day. We brought sandwiches. We sat outside and just had lunch.
Yeah, I meant to ask you, how did you do for food there? You brought your own or you enjoyed the cafes at the chateaus if they had one?
What we usually do when we travel, it's like, okay, we'll stop on the way, get a croissant for breakfast. And we usually pack lunch like on the way or just get a sandwich on the way. And then we save room for the dinners because the dinners is where we'll do the 3 courses and have the wine and everything. So lunch will kind of the casual sandwich just sitting outside where there's a nice view.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Oh, and I wanted to mention it got the rain too because it was quite particular here. So the first time we went to the Loire Valley, the river itself was almost empty. And you could actually see the ground in it. It wasn't a hugely rapid river. This time, there had been so much rain in the season. The rivers were to the max.
Yeah.
And there was actually quite a bit of flooding everywhere. Some of the vineyards were flooded. Some of the roads were flooded. So even when we were taking the bike, we had to be rerouted because we couldn't go through.
Yeah. Yeah. This year was very different that way. We had a lot of rain. It stopped. Although this morning I got up early and I was walking my dog and it was looking like it was going to be it was like 23 degrees when I left. An hour later, it was raining pretty hard on us, but only for 10 minutes. But it was at the end of the walk, so it didn't matter. I was like, okay, well, I was all wet. Both me and the dog were all wet, but it didn't matter because we were just heading home anyway. So
the weather has been extreme this year.
Yeah, it's been different. But I'd rather have too much rain than too much heat waves,
It's true. I agree with you. Okay, so next day we drove. We went to this town called Langeais, another super cute medieval town, and they have a chateau there. So surprise, surprise. So we went to this Chateau Langeais, and this one was just rich with history. Apparently at this hotel, chateau, not hotel, there was the secret wedding of Anne de Bretagne and Charles VIII, King of France, which because of that marriage, Brittany became part of France.
Right.
So they had a kind of a multimedia exhibition, kind of like the animatronic characters reenacting this wedding. It was something different to see and actually quite well done.
Yeah.
Really well restored with a lot of medieval furniture and everything. In the attic, they had all these like toy Playmobil mini chateaus set up to see, which was kind of funny. And this one had another great garden. It had this massive 3-story treehouse, which was funny to explore and get some pictures again. But, Annie, a lot of these chateaus, the grounds are equally spectacular to the interior and sometimes actually nicer.
That's very true. If you enjoy gardens, chateaus, they normally have a really, really good garden. Some of them stand out as truly spectacular, but most of them are very nice. No question about that.
Next one we went to, I didn't actually like that much. It was called the Château de Lisette. It looked nice. It was beautiful grounds, beautiful chateau, but people were still living there. So it was actually modern inside. So you're going into a modern kitchen and a modern bathroom, a modern bedroom, which is kind of like weird. It's like, I don't just see their toilet.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is Lisette. I never even heard of it.
Yeah, it was beautiful, but and actually on the grounds too, there was a lot of animals and there was a goose that tried to attack me. So it was like the experience overall was kind of not so great at that one.
So not recommended.
Not recommended that one.
No,
But
not that
the
one.
next one we saw, highly recommend. This one was the Chateau d'Ussé. And this one apparently was the inspiration for the book, the original book of Sleeping Beauty by Charles Perrault. The castle, I guess, inspired him to write that story. So big, impressive castle with its own little cathedral. And then in the upper floors, they have basically all reenactment scenes from the Sleeping Beauty done with like mannequins. And you see the wheel where they make the thread that she picks herself. You can see all that. It was kind of well done. Kids would really like that, I think.
Aha. That's cool. That's very nice. Yeah, I haven't seen the Chateau d'Ussé, but I have heard about it.
It was really impressive. So that ended the first 4 days of the trip, and then we actually relocated. So we drove about an hour heading towards Angers. And before we got to Angers, well, first of all, the weather turned and it got beautiful. Sun out, we have the shorts on finally. We're able to profit a bit. So that was nice. But on the way to Angers, we stopped at a chateau, which was actually my favorite of the trip. This one was called the Château de Brissac. It was huge. It was about 6 or 7 floors. So like this massive square tower about 20 minutes outside of Angers, really well maintained, beautiful rooms. And it was interesting because on the top floor, they actually built a fully functional theater to do like plays and musicals that could seat 50 to 75 people. So like at the top floor of this thing, there's like a full theater, which was kind of different and unexpected to see.
What's the name of the chateau again? Sorry?
Brissac. Brissac.
Huh. Okay. I haven't heard of this one either. You did go into some very interesting ones. That's wonderful.
But that's what's kind of interesting, Annie. It's like the big ones like Chambord, Chenonceau, they're impressive and they're amazing. And you definitely need to visit them because they're monumental. All these little ones, there's something different and unexpected in each one. So they may not be the most big and impressive, but there's these little gems that we found in each place that made it equally as special and interesting to visit.
That's wonderful.
This one had a wine tasting as well. So we were able to test different rosé wines that they actually make there. And we bought a couple bottles as well. So that was nice. Then we drove to Angers, beautiful city, about 120,000 people. It's young. It's a university town. It's vibrant. I was reading, I think it's voted as like one of the most likable places to live in France.
Mm-hmm.
So we set up shop in Angers. In Angers, we took an Airbnb. So we stayed there for 2 nights. We did an Airbnb and it was okay. It was clean, modern. It had everything, but it was kind of sterile, it had it didn't have charm like the place before.
Yeah. Well, Airbnb, that's what they tell you. Everything should be from IKEA.
Yeah.
Disposable. Like if they break it, they break it. Fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So Airbnb, don't expect too much unless it's a really expensive Airbnb and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But it did the job. It was fine.
Yeah.
We had a place to sleep.
Exactly.
And then that day, we also did one other chateau just outside of Angers called the Château de Sargent. This one wasn't the most beautiful. It was actually kind of run down. But what's interesting here, you could go in the basement and visit like the servant area. So you could see like the kitchens, where the butler was, where they did the ironing and the dishwashing and the furnace. So again,
interesting.
It was something different, It was like Downton Abbey, we're downstairs with the servants.
You were the servants. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So again, something different, that you didn't expect.
Yeah, most chateaus, you don't get to see the kitchen. Some of them you do, but many of them you don't. So that would be really interesting to see that.
And I think people lived in it into the 1900s. So it was kind of, turn of the century stuff. It was kind of cool to see. And so the next day, we spent the whole day in Angers doing a self-walking tour. And again, the weather was spectacular. So we were so happy to be outside. And, one pro tip I wanted to share with you, Annie, and the listeners is every town in France, almost every town in France has the tourist office. And these are gems of resource and sometimes some really good deals. We hit the tourist office here to get a map and everything. And actually, they told us about this Angers City Pass, which is basically for 28 euros for 48 hours, get granted you access to 25 sites around Angers. And so with that, we actually built our walking tour. Okay, let's hit all of these sites. And so I think we paid 28 euros, but I think it actually, if we added up all the prices, it would have been 50 euros per person.
Yeah.
So it was a great deal to save some money and see all of these fantastic sites.
And also it gives you a list of all the places that are worth seeing that are not the one that everybody finds on the page one of Google. But, that's always a problem. Like a lot of these places, they have a lot of interesting stuff, but they don't show up on Google. If you don't show up in the first 5, it's like you don't exist. Unless you have a nice tourist office that say, okay, you can visit all these outstanding things and they're all interesting, or they wouldn't even be in this deal, if they weren't interesting in some way.
Yeah, so we were happy to have that. They were very helpful. The guy told us where to start and everything. So honestly, those tourist offices, really help you plan nicely.
Yes, I agree. Let's move on to some restaurants.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a lot of time, and you had some very good meals that you wanted to recommend. So let's talk about those.
We ate one night in Saumur at this restaurant called Le Pot de Lapin. So it's the rabbit pot, I guess that translates to English.
Yeah.
And this restaurant was styled as, they called it a bouchon Saumurois, kind of like a bouchon lyonnais, but more to that.
Saumurois, yeah.
Very familial, a homey, nothing fancy, fresh, local ingredients. And the experience was fantastic because I had the chalkboard with everything written. The waitress came over and walked us through every single item on the chalkboard, having fun, laughing with us, created a really, really nice moment for us. And, we had a delicious, delicious meal there, really fresh and local. And there was one thing on the menu that was something new that was really, really spectacular. It was one of their starters. And it was called foie gras de pauvre. So poor man's foie gras. So really, foie gras is made from duck or goose liver. Here, it was made from rabbit liver, which I guess is less costly than the duck or the goose. And it's mixed with lots of garlic and herbs. It's made to look exactly like a regular foie gras, but the taste and texture was so light, so aromatic. It was just something really, really fresh and delicious. And I encourage your listeners in France, be adventurous, be adventurous and try something new, because worst case, you don't like it. And okay, you have a great story to tell your friends. You tried something weird, but you might fall in love and you find something really, really spectacular.
I've never heard of foie gras de lapin. Never heard of it.
I hadn't either.
Well, I wouldn't try it. My husband would.
Yeah.
In Chinon, you also had a good dinner.
Yeah. So in Chinon, we ate at a restaurant called a Charbon, translates to charcoal, I guess, in English. And basically, the restaurant used to be a pizza place. So they had this big wood-burning oven, but they changed owners and they made it into a rotisserie restaurant. So they're cooking all the meats directly in this wood-burning stove.
Nice.
And so Florian, he loves the roasted bone marrow, where you spread it on bread. So he had that, and then we had the braised pork belly for the main. And it's just, wow. You can't go wrong.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful.
And one thing I do when I travel too, I'm like, give me the local wine. Give me your local red wine or white wine and let them pick. And it pairs so well with what they're doing there.
Fantastic. So you've talked to me about some of the things that you learned in France, because, you live in France. For people who aspire to spend more time in France, perhaps live in France, do you have encouraging words or things that you want to share about that?
Well, one thing I've discovered about France, and this is why I'm a Francophile, compared to the US, it's not a big country land-wise.
Yeah.
But in terms of what it has to offer, it's huge. And what I love about this country is every place you go, 2 hours this way, 2 hours that way, it's something very, very different. Culturally, architecturally, food-wise, wine-wise, there's so much to see. So really explore. Point one. Point two, yes, see all the big things, the Eiffel Tower, all of the big name chateaus I was talking about in the first visit, but find some of the off the beaten path sites to see as well, because you're going to find something really extraordinary and unique and something different. Like on this trip, it's what? We saw the Castle of Sleeping Beauty. In Angers, we saw this medieval tapestry of the apocalypse, which is this giant tapestry that it's amazing. It's huge.
Angers is a wonderful town. We recorded an episode about it. I went and loved it. I thought it was a beautiful town.
Yeah, really beautiful. Every place you go, even if it's not a brand name, you find something really extraordinary because there's such a long and rich history, So there's just so much stuff to see.
Yeah, definitely. And one word of caution that you mentioned in your write-up is double check opening times. Don't expect things to be open 24/7 the way you might think they are in the US.
Yeah, and like some of the places like Angers and that walking tour we had hoped to hit, it's like some museum we walk up to and it's only open on like the third weekend of school vacation and from 2 to 4 p.m. So it's like, okay, that's a bit specific. And watch out for Mondays. Mondays, traditionally, places are closed, especially outside of Paris. On Monday night, we actually struggled to find a restaurant to eat at.
Yeah, Sunday nights and Monday nights can be a problem. Yeah, definitely. You need to not be picky those nights. If it's open, go eat.
So we found a Chinese restaurant, which is fine.
It's fine. You're not going to go hungry or anything, but...
I would say the last advice too, some places require a reservation. So take a look before, like in Angers, we had hoped to visit because it was included in that, the city pass I was talking about, the Cointreau factory. So it's like that orange liqueur. There was you get a free visit with that Angers pass, but they were sold out. I would have to have booked several weeks in advance, but c'est la vie.
Yeah, sometimes things do get sold out. So, all right, Paul, you are a delight to talk to. I can see the enthusiasm about France and chateaus and stuff like that. That's wonderful. You're going to make a lot of people jealous. They're like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Well, I'm happy to share it. I had a great experience on this trip. And like I said, I love France. It's a magical place. It's so rich.
When you moved here, did you have the job before you moved or did you? Okay.
Yeah, I did. And they helped me with the move. And my husband was French. So it was easy. It was easy to, quote unquote, easy to do it.
Right. Well, it was the same for me. It was 20 years ago, but my husband, and I'm French, but I was like, oh, I don't know, how we're going to do finding work in France, because especially back then, it was pretty difficult. And so he asked his boss if he could transfer, and he did.
Oh, that's great.
And it worked out just fine. And then I found work as well. But it was really good that one of us had a job anyway. I think if you can pull it off, it's the best way to do this.
We were lucky because we were working for this French company in the US and got transferred to Paris. So it worked out quite nicely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Paul. I hope that everybody's going to enjoy this episode and go visit some of these places. I might have to do that myself.
There's some gems. Thank you so much, Annie.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Again, I want to thank my patrons for giving back and supporting the show. Patrons get several exclusive rewards for doing that. You can see them at patreon.com/join us. Patreon. Join us, no spaces or dashes. Although I don't have any new patrons to welcome this week, I'm incredibly grateful for the continued support from all of you. Your backing makes it possible for me to keep creating content that I'm passionate about. Would you join them too? You can do it for as little as $2 a month. And to support Elise, go to patreon.com/EliseArt, ELYSART. Somebody left this review of my Saint-Germain-des-Prés tour this week. Absolutely lovely. Thoroughly enjoyed this interesting and beautiful tour. Well, thank you very much. Saint-Germain-des-Prés is a beautiful area indeed, and there's lots of little streets that you'll miss if you don't have some help visiting it. Podcast listeners get a big discount for buying these tours from my website, but if you buy directly from me, it's a manual process because I am not a robot. So it might take a few hours before you get the codes on account of sleep and time differences as well. And if you want to read more reviews of these tours, go to joinusinfrance.com/VMR. That stands for Voice Map Reviews. There's hundreds of reviews of each of my tours. If you're planning a trip to France and you need personalized advice, hire me as your itinerary consultant. choose the Bonjour service for a Zoom call with tailored recommendations, or go for the VIP for the same call plus a very detailed follow-up guide. And sometimes it's hundreds. I mean, it can be as many as 200 pages. So it's very detailed. Ready to start? Visit joinusinfrance.com/boutique and follow the email instructions. And of course, if you don't need a one-on-one consultation, you can still make your trip to Paris better by taking me along with you by using my self-guided GPS tours on the Voice Map app. These are very inexpensive, and they lead you to the best of Paris, covering the Eiffel Tower, Le Marais, Montmartre, Latin Quarter, Ile de la Cité, and Saint-Germain-des-Prés, and the foods-themed tour around Les Halles. And because Christmas is coming up, I should mention that you can also support the podcast and discover some of my favorite products on Amazon by going to joinusinfrance.com/Amazon. Every purchase made through this link helps me keep bringing more great conversations about France, and it won't cost you a penny more. Thank you for your support. Let's talk about phone safety. Two friends are hiking in the woods when they encounter a bear. As the bear notices them and starts approaching, one friend quickly drops to the ground and begins tightening his shoelaces. The other friend, panicking, says, "What are you doing? You can't outrun a bear." The friend calmly replies, "I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you." It's the same thing about phone safety. You don't need to have the most incredible phone safety protocol in the world. It just needs to be better than that of most other tourists. Do what you can not to be an easy mark, because most thieves are looking for an easy mark. All modern phones are password protected. Some have thumb lock unlock, some do facial recognition. Those things work great. But you must get into the habit of locking your phone when you're not using it. It'll save the battery too. Set up your phone to back up constantly. With iPhones, it'll be on iCloud, and with Android, it'll be on your Google account. My photos are also backed up to my OneDrive. You could use any backup system you want. There are many, but your device must be backed up. Not a special backup that you run when you think about it, but one that runs all the time in the background. That way, if you lose your phone, you can get a new phone and restore the data, and it's like you never lost it at all. It's a pain because you probably won't get that new phone for a few days, perhaps not until you get home, but at least you'll find all your stuff again. iPhones have something called Find My Phone. Android phones have something called, I think it's called Find My Device. Enable it, set it up before your trip. Should you lose your phone or have it stolen, you'll need to log in to your Apple or Google account, know your password, to do any number of things. Lock the phone, make it ring or buzz, wipe all its data, etc. But you need to know your credentials to log into that Apple or Google account from a computer or from another phone. So there are some passwords you need to know. Your Gmail or whatever email you use, and your phone, either your Apple account or your Google account. Phones are getting more and more sophisticated, and it'll get to the point where stealing a phone will be totally useless, and then it'll stop. Apple is getting there, I think, but not quite. And, remember when people used to steal car radios until they made it useless because you couldn't use a car radio in a different car. And so that stopped. It'll happen with phones, but we're not quite there yet. Beware of public Wi-Fi. This was especially true before Google forced every site pretty much to go to HTTPS instead of HTTP. But avoid accessing sensitive information like banking apps on public Wi-Fi. This is one good reason to purchase data from your own phone provider. Say you're with T-Mobile or AT&T or any other provider. If they are the ones giving you data in France, then it's just as safe as if you were using your phone at home. I suppose you could rely on public Wi-Fi and use a VPN, that's a virtual private network, to encrypt your data when connected to a public network, but that'll cost you some money, as well. And it'll only work when you're around public Wi-Fi. So you might as well pay for data from your regular provider. I know all American providers have something you can sign up for. It probably won't be included in your regular service, but by now it's a must-have when traveling. I'm very lucky because my home phone plan is with Free Mobile. It's a French data provider. And we've had free roaming for years all over Europe and the US and Canada. It's not as fast sometimes as if I were at home, but it's totally usable and it's safe. And in my case, it's free. Maybe it'll be free for you as well. You do need to check. And then there's physical safety. Use a good phone case, a good screen protector. Beware of your surroundings. Be city smart. And don't assume that that nice young lady asking you if you speak English needs your help. When you're not using it, your phone should have its screen locked and be in a zipped pocket. And if someone is trying to distract you, someone else is probably trying to rob you. Don't do anything difficult like figuring out the RER system when you've just arrived and are tired and jet-lagged. Don't be too trusting in new social situations, especially when drinking. Okay, I'm showing my age, but it's the reality, okay? When you start drinking, you get dumb. So it's easy. 6 steps. Let's recap. Lock your phone when not in use and put it in a zipped pocket. Number 2, enable continuous backups. Number 3, enable Find My Phone and know your credentials. Number 4, buy data from your provider. Number 5, protect your phone with a case and a screen protector. Number 6, don't tackle complex tasks like navigating the RER when tired and jet-lagged. You are now less exposed to ruining your vacation because of a thief. My thanks to podcast editors Anne and Christian Codovan, who produced the transcripts. Next week on the podcast, an episode with Elise on the city of Bourges and its many hidden gems. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2024 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.